Welcome to Why It's So Bright at Night. This is the show where I dive into specific things that I came across in the news. This episode, I'm very excited to have someone who's no stranger to nighttime conservation and art. Alona Rodeh is a Berlin-based visual artist, you're a scenographer, urban and special practitioner who specializes in working at the intersection of virtual and physical space. And you're known for creating immersive environments that incorporate light and sounds. And these are all, you can find some of these really cool ones on Alona's website. There's a lot of really cool little projects he does. Um, Alona, you direct short films, publish, you've published artist books, and you've been working kind of in this dark sky space for a number of years, including leading nocturnal walks. So, Alona Rodeh, welcome to Why It's So Bright at Night.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, I came across your name, and I know you've been in this world for a bit, but a lot of times I come across these things when I'm doing my news poll each month for the main show, and I stumbled across an article back in our May show, Mother Snowy Owl, that showcased a recent Nightcaps installation in a Berlin neighborhood. You can actually find a location of all of these out on Aloda's website, but there's a Google Map location pin. So if you ever find yourself in Berlin and want to check these out, it's pretty neat. So the article is titled RBB. I'm sorry, the article was from RBB 24 and was titled "As a Lamp You Wear a Hat." I think there's something lost in the English translation there, but you get the point at home. So why don't you tell a listener at home kind of what this looks like, where it came from, how it came about?
Right. The Nightcaps project, actually, the prehistory of it was in 2021. I was invited for a festival for art and urbanism in Stuttgart. I was just invited to come to the city, walk around some areas that were designated for the festival, and see what ideas I have. And so I was walking in one of the parks, which had some of it had these spherical lanterns, the same that are for the Nightcaps project today. And I thought it's a shame that they're kind of nice, they're okay. A lot of them were installed. They're installed all over the world, basically between the 60s and the 90s. They were all over the place, and in many places, especially pedestrian areas, parks, they stayed. But their problem is that they're completely unshielded. And my proposal was to do a series of a few sculptures that will be like caps on these street lanterns. And so it was. So it was installed for a few weeks. And I thought, wow, this is pretty nice. Like these lanterns are everywhere. I could do this anywhere. But then it never happened. And then I moved to live in the neighborhood which I live in now, which is Brunnenviertel in Berlin. It's a part of Wedding. Wedding is very much of a working class neighborhood with a lot of immigration, historically, but also very present today. And in this neighborhood, there's a lot of these. And they're actually not owned by the city, they're owned by a housing company. So they're installed really between the buildings in the kind of not on the main roads. And what is special about this neighborhood is that when it was rebuilt after Second World War, it was rebuilt with mainly social housing, mainly built by this company. It's called Degevo, and with a lot of public space, a lot of green spaces. So this is something that in most places you cannot imagine. It was thought of as let's build less flats and more green spaces, which is very nice. And so they ended up with these lanterns, and the city completely ignores them, and they know that they shouldn't be installed anymore. They don't oblige to the rules. The EU regulations are relatively good on these things, with color temperature and with shielding, but these ones are not. And bottom line, I applied for some funding for the city, some art project funding to do this in Berlin, in this neighborhood, and I didn't get the funding. But it took so long to have the meeting with this real estate company, which is this huge, huge company. They have like 800,000 flats in Berlin. Um, but eventually it reached the right person there. And then we had the meeting, and I saw that they were very excited about it. So I told them, well, if you want to sponsor it, you can. And so it happened in 2024. So we installed 10 of them in 2024. One of them got lost, like somebody eliminated it,
Wait,
and they
somebody
liked it.
got like they vandalized it.
Somebody stole
Somebody
it. Like,
stole it.
it's pretty hard to do, but it disappeared. It disappeared after a few days. Um, so that happened in 2024 in October, and the article you saw was a few months after that. And then there was a lot of other articles as well locally in Germany, and some interest from other groups. We'll maybe talk about it later. But they liked it so much that they wanted to do more. So a few weeks ago, we installed more in September. In July, we installed more, and now there are in my neighborhood. There's 15 artworks in the street.
And that's 15 additional ones.
Each one, no, 15
So,
altogether.
so I want to kind of share this view because you shared over a link to the press release to me, and let's see if I can get this on here right. Here we go. These 1 second. I'm hoping. Okay, 1 second. I have the one up that shows it's kind of like the bat over the light fixture. And for you at home who's listening to this,
Yes.
this is a just what these light fixtures are like cylindrical poles that go up, and then there's a light sphere directly on top of that pole. And in this case, Alona, you put a bat that's kind of riding the sphere on top of it.
Yeah.
Uh, you have some pretty neat ones in here. And what is this one over here to the left? It looks like it's maybe I don't know. Why don't you tell me about some of these, I guess.
Sure. So the bat has a special story, actually. There is an association. My focus was more on head coverings, hairstyles, like caps of different sorts and different head coverings. But then I was approached by this NGO called NABU. I'm actually not sure what it stands for. It's in Germany. It's very known in Germany. It's for for wildlife, and in particular preservation of wildlife, or kind of supporting wildlife in cities. So I was approached by NABU Berlin. They told me that their focus this year is on light pollution and that they would love to do something about bats. So I thought they're approaching me to do some project together, like something that is, in other words, that's something that has some funding. But exactly after they approached me, they lost their funding. Now in Germany, there's a lot of cuts in all sorts of fields. So they lost the funding. eh, but they were so nice, and I was so attracted to this topic because bats are so sensitive to to artificial illumination, that I said, well, I mean, we can anyway just do a bat. That's no problem. So that's how this one happened.
And you said
And
a lot of them are usually some kind of headdress or headwear. You have one here that's a ball cap with a ponytail sticking out. Very much looks like a person.
yeah,
I thought that was very clever.
yeah,
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 these all have they're aesthetically enjoyable, right? Like if you're a neighbor, if
really.
you're walking through, there's something aesthetically pleasing about these. It it's when I look at the other lamps, it actually makes the other lamps look kind of um I don't know the right phrase for it. It makes them look very pedestrian, I guess. And these have some kind of personality, and they look like, you know, in my mind, they'd be more cared for because you have this uniqueness about them. Have you seen any reaction? Like, have you heard any reaction from the community or from people, like just normal people who are walking around here, work around here, live around here?
Yeah. So when we installed the first ones, people were very suspicious. Also, because I installed them myself with my team in the studio, like I could really sense with the reactions. In the beginning, people were really like, "Did you get permission?" and these type of questions of like Ordnungsamt, as it's called in Germany, like the order of the city of the streets. And then when we installed the second ones, we saw such a big difference. People were so like, "Oh, cool, you're installing it here." And like my son always wants to walk through here because there's this thing here, and it does what is called in kind of public art or urbanism placemaking. Yeah, it's a bit of a placemaking thing that brings things a bit out of their anonymity. And so I got a lot of these. And also, of course, it kind of on social media things happened naturally, and you feel for me the oh this what we see now is actually my studios here behind where I'm sitting now. There's one artwork, there's one sculpture that is watching over my building in particular. It's the one here on the left. um, there's a lot of variation also on the caps, so taking the same 3D model and kind of doing variations like you saw with it's called Cuckoo Cappy, the one that has a a ponytail. So it's a lot of variations. Also, this one on the right side that we're seeing now is the curly girl next door. So if you go up a bit, you will see that there's two, one next to another. One is called the girl next door, and the other one is the curly girl next door. Exactly. Go a bit more up. Here, these ones. So the first model was the one on the right, the girl next door, and then we were like, let's give her more curls. And so that's her sister or her neighbor.
So
So it's a lot about these little games.
how did you come up with some of the names for these? Because some of the names I was cracking up at when I first came across these.
Yeah, yeah. The names kind of give in a bit, kind of to give people an idea. First of all, you see that they all have these yellow signs. So are in gray, which is very basic gray, the gray that you use as a grund, as a base layer. So they kind of don't attract too much attention in their color. So it's meant to blend in, as in we're not, you don't always see it at the first sight. The signs, on the other hand, are really meant to make it clear that this is art. And then the name also supports this, as in to give you an idea for the one, for example, the one we saw before that is kind of like a fabric covering. This, she's called the Bedouin. So this was very much a result of something that we did in the neighborhood. You were asking actually about community. This is an important aspect. So we did some workshops with kids from the neighborhood and also with adults. We did three different workshops, one with school kids, and another one that was open for families, and a third one that was more for people who are really interested in the topic, that we did with NABU, with this NGO. And the one we did for the families, which was kind of very mixed, a lot of the kids in the neighborhood are of a Turkish background or immigration background or from the Middle East. And there's a lot of young girls who have already some sort of head covering, hijab or others. And they were all drawing because the workshops were, we gave them kind of sheets of paper, and on the sheets of paper there was the shape of the lantern, and you could bring in your own design. And this was a base for us to kind of come up with new ideas. And a lot of them, they were drawing their headscarves, which is a very natural thing to do. And I thought that I would love to include that, but it would take so much light away. Like we still need light going down, right? So if we would do it actually similar to how they wear it, there would not be enough light going down. And so I came up with this model, which is kind of reflecting on this culture, but kind of still is open to the
That
floor.
brings me up, or that brings a good question in my head, is that these these caps, these headdresses you put on these light bulbs or these light fixtures, uh, I'm sure there's a noticeable difference between pre-fixture and then headdress fixture. Has there been any kind of do how have people reacted to that? Because the light has to be noticeably different from when you installed and when you had it pre-install.
Mhm. The way it's designed is that, for example, a model like the Bedouin that has more light facing one direction than to another direction, we placed it always in places that, for example, there's a tree behind or like a green area. So the light goes only to the path itself. So I didn't get any responses of we don't have enough light because, of course, it's not that we installed them on all the lights in the street, and it so far I didn't get actually any negative response at all to this of like we don't have enough light here.
Well,
Not at all.
Alone, yeah, because alone a lot of that light is really wasted light with these fixtures. It's not really. I don't hesitate to say the term good light. But it's not. It's kind of a
Yeah,
lot of wasted light, right? In this case, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, I would assume that most people will say, hey, as long as I can see where I'm going, I can see my surroundings, I'm pretty good.
yeah. It's also important to say that Berlin generally is a very dark city. And it's very dim. It's like dimmed down. It's gloomy. It's a gloomy city. If you come from the US, have you been ever to Berlin?
I have not been to Berlin. No.
Yeah, you would be
Yeah,
shocked.
I probably would enjoy that.
It's lovely. It's lovely. It's of course not necessarily planned. It kind of just happened that way historically because there's a lot of areas. One third of Berlin is not built, so it has a lot of green spaces that used to be tracks or that used to be the wall where the wall was, or some buildings that were demolished. So because of both Second World War and the East-West thing, there's a lot of empty spaces. So also because it's a relatively poor city historically, then things were not really taken care of. And then they kind of picked it up in the early 2000s. They were like, actually, we like it. Actually, it's what we want, this gloomy atmosphere. And it's also not a place with a lot of business and not a place with a lot of um, like crazy shopping areas or something. So it's a if you come from more or less elsewhere that is not Norway or Sweden or the Nordic countries, then you feel that it's pretty dim,
Hmm.
which is nice. So the starting point is already less of a
Yeah.
problem, but of course there's always what to do to make things better. And the idea of the Nightcaps project is really to kind of trigger the imagination about, of course, it's not super functional solutions. There's better, cheaper ways to do things, but instead of throwing away these lanterns and putting in new ones, which is, of course, generally the right thing to do, but a very expensive solution, then kind of thinking of adapting and of raising awareness, basically.
I love what you did here. Because this is something where when you're walking through a town and you see this, just little art projects like this, like you said, the placemaking, it really it brings a smile to your face, right? You instantly kind of connect with that community, regardless of how far apart you are from that community, and it really it's really unique. So has this in any way influenced, I guess, people's awareness of light pollution or any artificial issues related to artificial light?
I think so. I think I mean, when we did now the second edition, I literally called it Nightcaps Sculptures Against Light Pollution, which is kind of, mothers against war, so sculptures against light pollution. It's kind of, um, I think, although the word itself against is negative, but generally it's a positive attitude towards um, solutions that are both fun, that stimulate the imagination, that create a lot of curiosity around this topic that is completely, I mean, as well as I do, is not so well addressed. People mostly have no idea what is light pollution and why it's important. So I feel through the discussions, it's definitely, I mean, it's changing the world is a long path, but it's something to do, and I feel like that from the various interests that come in my direction from this, it's working in Germany, which is a place that is relatively systematic about solutions. It's kind of shaking, people's perceptions. So
Now, I remember
there's potential
when
there.
I read the article, it says something about like a Darth Vader. Is there is that in this slide?
That's true. That's true. There was a Darth Vader that in the first version didn't get in, and then we gave it a twist that is something between a Darth Vader and a forgot now the word. Wait, I'll go get it. Just a second. I have the model here. Yeah, this
Oh,
is
cool.
the model we did.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not black and white. The
Yeah.
the modeling it was just the 3D printing. I didn't mention that it's all 3D printed. Like these are large, small prints, of course, for the models, but there's large prints. The large prints themselves are all 3D printed. It's recycled plastic. It's all produced here in Berlin. So everything from the production to the funding and everything is local. So yeah, this is the iteration we did on, or the inspired Darth Vader inspired model.
Well, that's very neat. So do you have any plans for
It's called it's titled Steel Shade.
Steel Shade? All right. I like it. I like all of this. This is great. Alona, do you have any plans for
Thank you, thank you.
having future to continue this out, or is it kind of you're at 15 now? Would you like to go up to 20, or why don't you tell me about the future of this project?
Yes. So, first of all, the works will be shown in various exhibitions in Germany in the near future for art and nature and some city-related places, one in Karlsruhe and one in Bad Homburg. And they want to do it again. Degevo, the housing company, they want to do it again next year. I'm thinking of how to make it a bit more to go through another phase, kind of to expand on it. I'm still checking my options. I'm going to do a similar project in Israel, where I come from, in one of the apparently all of the kibbutzim, all of these small villages in the Gaza envelope around Gaza, they all have these lanterns. And it's not additional ones. These are the street lanterns in all of the kibbutzim. This is pretty crazy.
So let me pause you
And
right
I'm
there.
going to do
Those
it as
are
a,
what's used for street lighting in that area. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And these villages are built historically that it's only the cars don't really go in. So it's really like very protected environments, and environments that have a lot of vegetation and a lot of biodiversity in them. Very green. So it's kind of the opposite of suburban, actually. It's the opposite of the American dream. It's like houses, the houses mean less and the community means more. So they were, of course, a lot of them severely damaged on the 7th of October. And I'm going to do a pilot project in one of the kibbutzim there to do workshops with children and with adults. And in the end, we do 8 sculptures there, and then we'll see if we do it in other villages as well. So that's going to be quite special because, of course, as you know, this is not the topic of this podcast, but things are pretty complicated over there. But I'm happy to kind of get closer because I don't live there for many years. So I'm going to do that there. And generally, I'm thinking of course, I would love to do more of these nightcaps, but I'm thinking more holistically also of generally providing creative solutions to light pollutions. In particular, what I'm aiming at and interested in is sports stadiums, like outdoor sport facilities. So more kind of the massive mass lights. So it's a different scale. So I want to scale up, basically.
Very cool. Very cool. Alona, before we depart here, I came across this one on your website, the Slow Swan Social Club, and I'm curious
Yeah.
about this guy. Let me share the screen here. I thought it's very interesting. One second. Let me find this. Um, so you describe it as being a humorous take, right? Why don't you tell me a little bit about this guy right here? To me, the first look I saw at it was like these swans are kind of like demons swimming in the water.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that. Heard that type of comment. So I didn't give the general background to how I got into light, working with light, or thinking or about the night and artificial illumination. But I actually come from also, I studied visual art, but I've been doing also stage design all my professional life. So I've been working with light since forever. I mean, since the last 20 years. And this one, I was invited to do a show that it was a group show that all of the works were installed outside for 4 months in a city called Braunschweig. And all along the water, there's some stream that goes through the whole city. So, similar to the story I told you before about Stuttgart, I went there and saw if I can find any ideas I'm interested in and any location I'm interested in. And this on my scouting, I saw this kind of parking lot of these type of swan boat pedal boats. I just saw them parking below some bridge in the water, and I thought it's really funny to see their parking lot. And then I decided to make an artwork out of it that is a kinetic piece. So there's two swans. They have these red lights. It's only active at night, the work. It's next to something that is, it's called a porticus. It's like an old ruin that is not actually old. This is kind of German style. They love to do this stuff. Um, if you look at historical images of this porticus, you see the swans swimming there. And now the swans are not there anymore, but you have the pedal boats. So each pedal boat had an anchor, and they were just going in circles, basically never meeting. So Slow Swan Social Club as this club of like, we want to be together, but we don't really know how to do it. And kind of romance, but also dark, as in a bit evil or a bit kind of, yeah, I describe it as an automated love song, but of course it has dark sides too.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I like it. I think it's pretty neat. I don't know what I should be thinking when I look at this, but it seems pretty cool. So so well done. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, it was funny, and it survived 4 months there outside. It survived all the kinetics.
So yeah,
Maybe maybe I should mention just one thing about the night walks, no? Because
yeah, you've been doing
yeah, we mentioned
these
it in
night
the
walks.
beginning, and
Yeah.
yes, so the night walks are kind of also a way of expanding the advocacy, the dark sky advocacy. And the ideal night walks are a combination between an intervention in public illumination, which could be something like the nightcaps, but it sometimes is other things, and the walk itself, which is a search of darkness. So it started in Berlin because I could find in Berlin places that are actually dark. So, for example, the park next to me here, it's not lit at night. It's pretty big and you can enter. It's not locked at night and it's not lit. And this is pretty special. because in most large cities, metropolises, it's either closed or lit. And Berlin and in other places in Germany also sometimes they keep it that way. And it's pretty amazing that it's possible. And it's a way to kind of really challenge yourself, but also not challenge too much because it's always a group. So it could be 30 people, sometimes even more, 40, 50 people. And we all walk together. And the deal is that there's no talking during the walk. And everybody should wear dark clothes so they kind of assimilate into the landscape. So no one pops out with some like orange t-shirt or something. And I do a few stops that the stops are always on contact, depending on the location. And I've been doing it in many places. Like I did by now, probably maybe 40 different walks and sometimes for students, of course, often in art contexts of some festivals or something. And mainly in cities, but now I did one in the Alps, for example, and I'm working on another one in another location that is more off city. So it's more about the city and about the history of city lights and the present of city lights and artificial illumination. But it's a very sensory, it's a very immersive experience, and it's also a feminist practice because women would never do it by themselves. But if you walk in a group and you have somebody to hold your hand, then you should be fine.
Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the main issues that we see at night, the questions we get, right? Uh, so are those groups self-selecting? Like who signs up for this?
So it's always, I never do it myself. So I don't see I'm not a tour guide by definition, although I have a background in that's what I did in my army time. I was for 2 years guiding hiking tours in nature. Um, but it's yeah, it's always like in the context of an exhibition or so there's a bigger network that can invite people, and it's always very popular. Like people love it.
Are they like scared in the beginning and comfortable at the how's that work? How do you see them change over?
Some people are scared. Some people are scared, but the fact that you walk together really helps. And it's very, very personal in the end. It means that for example, my eyes completely changed with like I'm so much more sensitive to light than I was 4 or 5 years ago. So it's a lot about getting used to the darkness. And of course, it's most of the time not really dark. It really depends, of course, on the weather. If there's clouds, then it will be brighter. If there's a full moon, it will be brighter. If it's winter, then the trees have no leaves, so it will be brighter. So these things are really, really changing, and people react differently. And it's yeah, it's an immersive experience. So, but I never had like people freaking out or like in a negative way or something. And no one ever got hurt also, which is I guess important. Um, but most of the time you experience varying degrees of light pollution,
Right.
even if you really, really try to find
Yeah.
darkness. And the other important thing about the walks is that they're always free. Like I will get my salary from the institution, but the walks are always open for everybody. But until registration closes.
Does anyone like if you hear people hear a squirrel, do they jump? Is that
Um, no, I don't really.
no.
It's most of the time okay. The last one of the last walks I did in the Alps was so amazing. We had so many fireflies. It's the first time I saw like a lot of fireflies. So that was amazing. And somebody took a picture unintentionally with a flash, and then people were freaking out because of the flash, not because of
Right.
the fireflies.
Well, that's great. Oh,
Yeah.
well, thank you, Alona Rodeh. Thank you for spending your time with me today on Why It's So Bright at Night. For a listener at home, for someone watching on YouTube, where can they find more of your work?
For regular updates, Instagram would be the best place. It's not the only thing I do. I do also animation stuff and other things you mentioned in the beginning. So it might be confusing for some people if they're looking only for this content. On my website is really more the archive of really all the works and in a more organized way, and then just the what Google has to offer.
And what's your Instagram?
And my Instagram is Alona slash, what is it like?
Underscore. Yep. Alona underscore.
Sorry,
Yep.
Alona underscore Rodeh.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you, Alona. Really appreciate it today.
Thank you so much.
If you're interested in more about light pollution news, you can head on over to our website. We have at lightpollutionnews.com. You can find this show. You can find all of our monthly shows, news links, a whole page dedicated just to ecology impacts from artificial light at night. And as a reminder, this is a listener support show. So if you're liking what you see or hear, why not subscribe or share with a friend? We really appreciate it. And thank you again for joining us today.